To start off, empty the controller using the empty function from the Smart keypad. Next, remove the tube and refill to about 2/3 capacity. While filling, you can use a 2.5mm Allen key to remove the 2 screws holding the bellow plate onto the gearbox. Note though that this particular controller has broken its bellows, and these will need replacing before the controller is reassembled. Now the motor has come back most of the way, we're going to stop the controller. For the next step, we need the pin that connects the ball screw to the gearbox to be orientated vertically. Adjust the orientation by filling or emptying a little. When this is in place, power off the controller, unplug it from the mains and unplug it from its Smart keypad. Once the controller is disconnected, knock the pin through using a hammer and a punch. If you don't have a punch, then a long, sharp, pointy nail is useful as well. Aim to remove the pin with one short, sharp stroke, not by many gentle taps. The pin should pop all the way through the ball screw. Tap the motor away from the cylinder to separate the gearbox spindle from the ball screw using a hand or plastic deadweight hammer. Be careful to confine the motor so it doesn't slide off the back of the linear guide. Now turn the whole controller upside down and remove the silver base panel using a 2.5mm Allen key to loosen the bolts. Next, we are going to remove the transducer de-airing block. Use a 10mm deep socket to remove the outer nuts. Unplug the cable from the PCB, then lift out the transducer block assembly. Next, remove the strain relief screws from the motor cable, the limit switch cable and the power cable before unplugging these cables. The inner nuts from below the transducer block can be removed using a 10mm deep socket. Then, remove the 2 bolts at the rear of the barrel using a 6mm Allen key. Holding the base, the barrel and the motor together, turn the whole controller back upright. Being careful to keep the motor on the rail, lift the barrel from the base. At this point, it is a good idea to clean any dirt from the base or linear guide. Set aside the base and remove the bellows if they are damaged so that we can focus on our controller barrel. Remove the tie bars using a 10mm spanner or socket and separate the cylinder and ball screw from the other parts. Wipe out any loose debris or water. Next, we need to remove the piston from the cylinder. It should be fairly easy to untwist using an Allen key or small screwdriver through the ball screw pinhole. As soon as you feel any resistance, stop. At this point, unscrew the rear cap along the ball screw and check that the piston head is level with the back of the cylinder. Fit a spacer between the rear of the cylinder and the front of the rear cap, then continue to unscrew the piston head out of the cylinder. Cleaning the piston and cylinder is an important part of the process, as it makes sure no soil or hardness particles remain inside the system. Wipe off loose debris with a tissue or a cloth. Using a small tool, pick the old O-ring out of its groove. Even though it was still holding pressure, we can see this O-ring has flat spots and is in need of replacement. Always replace the O-ring when you service a controller, even if there is little apparent damage. Clean all parts with a tissue or cloth and degreaser or mild soap. If you have small amounts of corrosion or hardness as seen here, a little bit of 1000+ grit wet and dry paper is useful. Rub the area gently to clean. It is also possible to remove these rods for better access. The same thing can be done with the piston head. You can use some contact cleaner if there is still a visible dirt coating at this point. Be careful not to spray cleaner or degreaser into the back of the piston head. Wipe off any excess and clean around where you may have made a mess. The rear end of the barrel should feel clean and smooth, whilst the other end may be visibly dirty and feel rough. So once again, we use a small amount of wet and dry paper to try to gently remove the dirt or hardness, but not any material from the inside. If it still feels rough, you should use a honing tool to gently clean the cylinder. Finish the cleaning using some more contact cleaner and a clean cloth for the remaining areas of the product, making sure to check the transducer block is dirt-free. Take 3 new O-rings and some silicone compound. Put a pea-sized amount onto your finger and massage a bit of grease into the piston head and O-ring, then fit. Take a similar sized bit on your finger, grease the O-ring for the front of the barrel, and place that in its groove. With your fingers still greasy, grease up the pressure transducer O-ring and push that into the groove as well. Take another pea-sized amount onto your finger and spread that inside the end of the control barrel. Make sure it goes deep into the barrel and apply from the other end as well. Take another smear of grease and concentrate on the chamfer at the rear of the cylinder. This will help the piston enter the cylinder more easily. Pick up your ball screw assembly, complete with Allen key to prevent the ball nut from being able to fall off. Fit the piston into the cylinder, be careful not to trap your hand, but gently work the piston down into the cylinder. Now reassemble the cylinder, taking care to align the flats. It may be easier to stand the cylinder on its end and guide in all of the threads in this orientation. You should see a small amount of thread. Loosely fit all the nuts back into place, then do a final sequential tighten. Now the barrel has been reassembled, we can continue reassembling the rest of the controller. Place the bellows back on the ball screw. If the old bellow was damaged, this is your chance to replace it with a new one. Carefully place the cylinder back together with the gearbox by gently tapping them together, making sure the holes are aligned. Turn the controller upside down to start re-plugging the cables. Make sure to hold the base, barrel and motor together as you do this. Screw back in the bolts in the rear of the barrel using a 6mm Allen key. Using a 10mm deep socket, place the inner nuts back onto their bolts. Make sure all the nuts and bolts are tightly fitted using their relevant tools. Re-plug in all the loose cables to their relevant sockets and screw in the strain relief clips. Place the transducer de-airing block back into its section, re-plug in the PCB cable and screw back in all the outer nuts using a 10mm deep socket. Ensure the transducer block is flat by sequentially tightening the two nuts. Now everything is back in place and tightened up, we can place the controller back upright. Put the pin back in its hole and knock it in using a hammer and a punch. Reattach the two screws to hold the bellow plate onto the gearbox using a 2.5mm Allen key. Make sure these are tight, then turn the controller upside down again to place the silver panel back on the base. Ensure the mounting holes are at the transducer end of the controller. Put all the bolts back as seen here, using a 2.5mm Allen key. Make sure all bolts are tight and then return the controller to its upright position. Re-plug the mains power and the smart keypad into their sockets. Finally, using the smart keypad, ensure the controller works by manually emptying, filling and pressure testing the controller. You should stay close to the controller on first use to ensure the limit switches action correctly, and then that the controller can hold pressure without leaking.